What sparked this? I mean, you guys have been doing all the album release and all the touring.
Well, since the record came out, really, we did some promo and then we did a little bit of touring, but mainly it's that. It's like, you know, kind of wanting to talk about King Animal. That's it, really, supporting the record.
When are you going to take a break? Aren't you guys getting tired?
No.
We're
No?
not tired of breaks myself.
Exactly.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Nice.
You do more.
Does that mean we can hope for another leg of touring?
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, that's sort of the way you promote your record, and you know, and it's also why we want to be a band, I guess. You know, definitely want to play shows, and it's not like some reprieve from retirement or something. You know,
Well,
I mean,
some bands
that's
you
the
end
whole
up
point.
with like kind of a hit it and quit it. You know, it's like
Yeah,
here's the promo, here's the album, here's the tour.
I don't really want to
See
quit.
you in two. You know?
Yeah,
I don't really
it's terrifying to think of that.
Yeah, I don't see I don't see a, what do you call it, like a finish line kind of thing. That part never has made a lot of sense to me. I mean, what we get to do is fun, exciting, and you know, why not keep doing it regardless of you know, anything else. At the end of the day, the bottom line kind of is that it's something we get to do. It's something that is fun to do. It's exciting to do. So, it's like you think of like software millionaires that go to like baseball camp or like rock star camp, you know, that they can do anything they want with their money, and they've got nothing but time, and then they go to baseball camp or rock star camp, you know, where that's what they're doing. I mean, it's kind of looking at it that way. It's like we get to play songs we wrote in front of people, and that's our job. It's not really like a job where you want it to end at some point, because it's not really a job.
So what you're saying is nobody harbors a secret desire to start an internet startup.
I don't.
What's that?
Nobody has secret ambitions for some alternative career.
Yeah, no, I don't. That's another thing that comes up a lot too. It's like people, like especially young guys that have success in music, immediately then use that to sort of enable themselves to do something that they liked more, whatever that is, balloon racing or.
I know exactly.
Or
It's
race
like
car
the child
driving.
star syndrome.
Sort of. It's like well, you know,
Everything happens, you're like, I've done it all, and then you implode.
or music was something that they just kind of fell into because they didn't have the opportunity to do other stuff, and then that created an opportunity, and then they kind of leave music behind. They don't really care about it, and they go do something else. Like that's not us.
I remember that on tour in the 90s, people going like, this is how you should tour. You should do all this and that. It's like, no, we're here to play music. That's what we do.
Yeah.
I don't want to go riding horses in Utah somewhere. What the hell is that all about?
Yeah.
You don't have a compound in Montana.
Or strip clubs and strip clubs
Yeah,
and
it's
strip
like
clubs and
none
strip
of that
clubs.
stuff.
That's all the
It's like-
80s rock stars open
yeah,
strip
it's
clubs.
like all
Going to
these
strip
people
clubs?
doing these weird things.
I think
all
that was
the
them
time.
combining their chocolate and their peanut butter.
Yeah, I don't know, because like to me, strip club, it's weird. It's a weird thing to me. I'm not judging anyone, but yeah, it's kind of weird.
If you had to combine the two things that you liked and make a hybrid business, what would it be?
Soundgarden.
Yeah,
It'd be like Soundgarden.
yeah. That's like. I'm glad
You'd
you
open
asked
a
that because that's
Soundgarden
sort of
cafe.
that's sort of the thing. It's like we figured out Soundgarden after all of us playing music in other bands and with other people and trying to like create music that was sort of uniquely our own. And Soundgarden was actually the end result of years of all of us like kind of fumbling around as musicians and songwriters and learning instruments and Soundgarden was in a sense kind of that brilliant startup company to us that actually worked and fired on all cylinders and was what we wanted it to be. And because it's a band and we write and record and produce records, it also means that you can always reinvent what that is too. You always have the opportunity to do music unlike anything that you've ever done. There's always these windows you can open that until one of us drops dead. So, in a sense, that's kind of another really positive side to being able to do what we do, is that it's not, well, they went on and they made albums and then they stopped. It's kind of like the making albums, for example, writing songs part can be anything. It's not one specific static thing that you then repeat, unless you're a band that does that, which happens sometimes.
No, you just see people in life all the time trying to find out what they are and who they do, or what they want to do and everything. That's one of the hardest things in life, is to figure that out. Most people spend most of their life doing that, and then they figure it out. And then, oh, sorry, your 80 years are up.
So looking back on when it stopped and the time until it started up again, do you feel now like it wasn't necessarily a breakup or a hiatus, or it was just a pause?
Well, in
How would
terms
you
of how
describe that?
in terms of how we function, like making King Animal, well, it didn't feel different than other albums really at all. It wasn't like we had to sort of figure out how to do it in 2011 or something, or it didn't feel like more than a decade where we then had to kind of somehow find a way to work together now. Like that was all second nature. And I guess that's like, somebody that's done like a tour of duty during a war where they're just, certain things are drilled into them and then it's hard for them to ever forget it. And for us, it's like we did so much as a band and as people working together, and whether it's playing live or writing songs, that part was easy. That part sort of took care of itself.
Yeah, it was like a bunch of chefs in the kitchen making yet another menu. We've done it enough. We know the kitchen. We know how to do it. We know the ingredients. We got it.
So there was a much more relaxed vibe in the studio. No
we're never
pressure.
relaxed.
No? Is there like a lot of back and forth? I mean, everybody is a musician in their own right. It's not like this is a dictatorship.
There's a
right?
lot of telepathy going on.
Yeah,
Other people get left in the dust. But
there's a lot of ideas. That's sort of the defining thing to me, if there is one, is that like we don't really struggle for that. Like to me, that's the difference between Soundgarden and other bands, or making my own record or Ben making his own record separately. It's like sitting and coming up with ideas for new songs. In Soundgarden, because you have four guys all bringing in ideas. Like for me, for example, as a lyricist, from the first time we talk about starting a new record, there's 5-6 ideas I got to sort of field and figure out and try to wrap my head around. And so there's never that, I don't think there's ever been that moment of we don't have any ideas. What are we going to do?
And Kim talks about that with his guitar playing too, that all of a sudden he has to learn Matt's style of guitar playing, mine and Chris's, and do those. So he's a full spectrum guitar player now, like all these different styles coming in.
Yeah, because we're all so insanely different. I mean, none of us are like GIT trained shredders. Kim's probably the one that really kind of played guitar as I'm going to be a guitar player and focused on the instrument. But I learned how to play guitar after Soundgarden started. So really, like,
he's a hell of a drummer, by the way. So
I was the original drummer too. But like the other guys in the band kind of influenced me in terms of how I write and how I play. But yeah, everybody approaches it, including Kim, from like completely different areas. So there's a lot, there's a lot of variance happening.
Was there an aha moment in the studio during King Animal where you kind of felt like deja vu from before, or like a technology moment where you're like, oh, we don't have to do it that way anymore?
Yeah,
anything
well,
like that?
when you're waiting for tape to rewind, and they're going, it's rolling, but you're waiting to hear the bzzz back to the top of a song.
Yeah, if you're doing a take, it used to be that you would do a take, and then they would rewind the tape, and then start it over.
Kind of gives you breathing
gives you break.
room.
Yeah, now they just
Breathing
you
room.
just
Now
click,
there's
and
no
it's
breathing room at all. You're just going.
You're like, yeah, let's hear that back, and you head out for coffee, and then, oh, right.
Yeah. And the other thing is the emailing demos and finished songs and stuff. That part's pretty. I mean, it's pretty great, really. Like to be able to get that and communicate that way, and like in the demoing process, you know, sending songs to each other, and you know, you can. I did a lot of singing over stereo mixes of songs we did in rehearsal, you know, and I could edit them on a computer and sing over it and send it back, and that way, you know, it made things. It can make things weirdly more intuitive. It also creates trouble when you're recording a record, because when things are digital, it's difficult to get it to sound the way that we're sort of used to sounding, you know, having always worked with tape. But it's like almost like what you would call a workflow thing, where it enables us to work faster than we did before, maybe, in an intuitive way when it comes to like writing and communicating what we're writing.
I knew it was aha for me when I heard Chris's demo of Rowing. I was like, all right, the gloves are off. Now we're really going. Now we're going forward. And that was before we'd even written or jammed out a lot of songs. It's like Chris was motivated and already took the next step. So we had a full concrete song for once.
Was that the song, or was there a different song on King Animal that flowed, that you guys just recorded in record time, or was there a lot of time spent on each one?
Yeah, I don't know. The
Yeah.
chronological
Kind of a pacing?
time order is bizarre to me. It's hard to even remember how it all worked out.
Yeah, and there were some songs where I didn't have vocal ideas, lyrical or melody necessarily.
Mixing.
Yeah, so we actually finished the arrangement instrumentally without really knowing what was going to be the verse and how long should the chorus be and that kind of thing. I ended up sort of at the last minute coming up with ideas for a couple of those songs that way, and then arranging it just based on what we'd already recorded. And I don't think we'd ever really done that before.
That's where the digital age helps too. You don't have to go and cut tape and put it together. It's not a big risk. Like, oh, that's the only one we have. You know.
You just throw something down on it and email it out to everybody and say.
No, you can organize it easier and then get to the parts that you want to work on.
And then there were there's always songs that kind of come together sort of naturally and easily. And it felt to me like most of this record, other than we were touring and, you know, we started, we were kind of most excited about making the record. But once we had announced that we're a band and, you know, a functioning band again, then there was a lot of noise from fans about wanting to see us play. So we did that, you know, and we would stop the writing process and the recording process, and we got on tour, and that ended up being a good thing to me, because it rather than sort of sit there and kind of force ideas on songs, time happened between them, and then I sort of approached it.
We kind of reinforced that we're calling the shots in a way.
Yeah.
We take our own time. There's no deadline. You know?
Yeah, we didn't do that the way it would, like we didn't reform, quickly rush an album out and then go tour so that we could then quit.
You feel like you're all in a position to say no when people suggest that you do something,
well, we didn't
if you
have
don't feel
a
like
label
doing it.
yelling at us or pressuring us. So we got to get this done. This is deadlines. Blah blah blah.
Now the fans are the label.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because
Kind
we've
of.
always felt
That's
like
how it should be.
we've always felt fine to say no, and we still do. But there's also that. But we're all also like, you know, we've always been aware that, you know, you have to consider how the business side of it functions if you want people to actually hear your record.
When it's time to bat, you get in the batter's box and go for it.
Yeah, so we've always been aware of that, and we've always tried our best to like kind of follow a timeline that we discuss. But we've also always been aware that you have to be flexible enough to just throw that out the window if it's not working. Like if it's not happening, and, you know, if you've told everyone your record's going to be done by March, and then for whatever reason you don't feel like it's the best thing you can do, and it's becoming March, then you have to be willing to just chuck that. I don't know how many times I've read stories about somebody who it's their record and they're talking about, well, you know, I was under pressure that year and we just sort of decided we should finish it and put it out there, and it was a big disappointment. I don't ever want to feel like that. I don't want to ever have to tell that story.
Yeah.
I also never wanted to tell the story because I had lots of friends in bands that would say, yeah, we finished the record and then we scrapped it and now we're back in the studio and we're starting over. That always terrified me. The thought of like your confidence would have to be just shaken to the core if you scrapped an entire record. Like, what kind of mood would you be in on day one of the second try? You know,
Or during the label crashes in the
Yeah,
late '80s when a lot of bands
exactly.
lost their albums.
Or we'd be on tour running into
Yeah.
friends' bands that were getting shelved, or the label dropped them. It's like, whoa.
yeah, yeah. We've been on tour where a band had to go home because of that, because they didn't have support.
When I saw you guys at Bill Graham Civic, it seemed like the never-ending show. It felt
Yeah.
like you guys wanted to play
It
everything.
was so damn loud that night. I remember that. That's that square room, right?
It was just,
The
yeah,
mezzanine.
yeah. But you guys felt like boundless energy and
Where we needed
nonstop
skateboards to
playing.
get around.
And is that kind of still full steam ahead where you guys are? Or are you trying to scale it down a little bit? 'Cause you've got a long way to
I
go.
think we're always trying to kind of scale it up. Like the last tour we just finished, we were adding songs we've never even played live before that are from 20 years ago, and we're still kind of we seem to be kind of bringing them in, and that's a difference, I think, in that around down on the upside. I don't think we were doing that so much. You know, we were actually. We would go out of our way to learn a whole new album, but then when we'd go out on the road, it wasn't like we continued to bring in songs from our past or from other records. But we do that a lot now, and maybe that just has to do with like realizing that we have the opportunity to take advantage of the fact that we're touring and playing live, and there's
That our
songs we
fans
should
are there,
play.
that our fans are there.
Yeah, there's
And we
songs.
didn't have to have an opening band this time around.
No,
That changed a lot.
so we can play longer. There's songs that weren't singles, for example, that we never played live that over the course of the last 15 years we sort of figured out are like fan favorites kind of, you know, and some of those we never played ever. And then songs, as you play them live, they kind of mutate into whatever it is they're going to be live, and so that's another thing. It's always interesting to give every song the opportunity to have that mutation, because you never know what's going to come out of it, and it can be pretty fun. And then there's songs we've always done live that are always mutating. We put out a live record that was from, I think, 1996.
Yeah, our last tour.
Live on I-5. And when I was listening to the songs and how we were playing them, and particularly how I was singing them, it's completely different than I ever remember. And I don't do it that way now either. I was just on some other thread, I guess. But I think that's also a big part of why touring is fun. Especially for us, because we kind of like, we go off the map all the time, and we always let each other do it, and we've never been self-conscious about it, and that always feels like comfortable and possible, and you know, there's no rigidity into what we do when we're playing them live. I can drag out some verse 5 times longer than it should be, or change too early, and I don't remember anyone ever getting mad at me for it, you know, and that feels good. That makes you want to get up the next day and do it again.
Does that make you guys feel good too, or are you like, oh, Chris?
No, we all do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I hear Ben going like on some tangent, I definitely I don't change. You know, I just sort of let him run away with the song. And I think that's kind of, I mean, we all do that, all 4 of us. And I think that's kind of one of the things about us that makes it interesting live, because we'll get lost as a band live in front of people and then figure out how to
Bring
get
it back.
found, and
Yeah.
it's all with an audience watching it, and we don't
To
know.
quote
how
a
we're
good
gonna do
friend,
it.
Greg Keplinger, it's never the same thing once. That's the way to do it.
It's almost like a new generation of jam band.
Yeah.
Sort
But
of, yeah.
completely different. Exactly the same, but totally different.
As a band that started out during a political time when it was very anti-establishment, the music, and then to come around almost full circle and to be sort of supporting the current establishment with the inauguration and President Obama and the campaign support. How does that, is that a little awkward, or is it kind of like an awesome natural progression? How are
Well, if you look
feeling
at
about
the, like, I think Reagan was president when we started. So if you like sort of look at what the status quo was then versus what it is now, it makes sense to me. You know, I feel like we would have been a band supporting the Obama campaign in 1980, 1985. When, you know, I don't remember when Reagan became president. Was it?
Remember, it was 80.
80.
80, yeah.
Remember all the people always said, oh, the Republicans are good for punk rock because there's something to rebel against. Well, I'd get rid of punk rock as long as you didn't have jackasses starting wars you don't need to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And
It's all about truth.
I also think that the music business was something that we were kind of rebelling against, and just the methods and that status quo. Part of it was the actual music. That was a big part of it. And part of it was the paths that people would take to make music, to write music, to be a band.
We're going to make it. We're moving to New York.
Yeah, everyone would
like
move.
piss up the road,
Everyone would kind of try to, in a sense, create music that was as close to what was already successful as possible, things like that. And we were of that group of musicians that was mostly indie musicians that were willing to like work regular jobs, you know, jobs that nobody wants to do when they can be a professional musician. We were willing to like do that in order to create the music we wanted to create. And I'd known musicians that were that didn't believe in, for example, being a construction worker or working in a restaurant as a dishwasher. You know, if you're going to be a real musician, you have to play music, and they would play like Sting songs in the back of a Chinese restaurant or something.
Top 40 bands.
Yeah, and that's, well, to me that was like
That's terrible,
hell.
man.
And that's horror. So we did it. We sort of focused on what we wanted to do, and then did all the blue collar jobs you have to do to make that happen with the mindset that maybe you never make money playing music, but so what? You know, you create the freedom to do whatever it is that you want to do, and maybe you, and if you are lucky enough to do that for a living, that's great. But I always felt committed to creating music, no matter what it took. You know, even if I had to be a dishwasher until I was 70. I've seen 70-year-old dishwashers. I knew what they looked like, and I knew it's possible. So I wasn't afraid of it. And I think that was sort of a bigger, watching the music business sort of steer into what we were doing and what other indie bands were doing, and then see it come full circle into what's happening now, which is there's no sort of music business focused music other than what is completely top 40, and then everything else is kind of viral. For a while that wasn't like that. For a minute in the 90s, you could be doing something interesting and get played on the radio and have a kind of a life of your own and kind of coexist with the music business, but in a friendly way, and be like Soundgarden, where we only made records we wanted to make. And now it's just this polarized, you have to be, absolutely completely simple and commercial and appeal to 7-year-olds with smartphones, or maybe if you're lucky, people will discover you online, and it's really different.
How do you feel about, as a band that's always made the music you wanted to make and made whole albums and still makes whole albums, how do you feel about the new digital age where most kids are barely downloading whole songs, living on ringtones?
I don't know. I sometimes I freak out on it, because I was definitely a kid that sat in my bedroom and listened to whole albums. And I definitely think that kids don't do that now.
Yeah. You can even see it on the sequencing of an album. It doesn't even matter anymore. But that's part of the art of a whole album, is putting the songs in order. No one cares.
Yeah, we don't.
Bands do.
We don't I don't think we've ever prioritized like a single, for example, in the context of the order of the songs. It was just really what's going to draw you into the album experience and keep you listening throughout the entire album. And probably, I don't really see that turning around. I don't see that turning around. I don't see like in 10 years from now people discovering
Until it
hour-long
becomes a
music.
virtual reality of some sort that you go
Yeah.
into the album world
Yeah, maybe.
and you can't get out until the last song's over.
Yeah, or it creates an
Put
environment.
this fucking helmet on and watch this song. What?
But they won't make that. They'll just there'll be playlists for
That'll
virtual
be for-
reality
yeah,
anyway.
Exactly.
But we kind of expected that in
Connoisseurs.
the 80s with the advent of the music video. We thought that by now we'd all be wearing helmets. And
Well, hell, we all grew up thinking we'd have floating cars by now, too. We're in the 2000s. Wait a minute.
Yeah, most of the Star Trek stuff we have, except for we have better phones than they had.
Yeah.
Star Trek just had the stupid communicator thingy.
Yeah.
well, we just got lasers. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. The Navy just got lasers that can.
It's all good and bad.
Lasers.
Yeah. Laser destruction is now a reality.
Well, I know that they were using light, like the Tesla math, to dodge things so you can make things invisible. But I didn't know if they were using lasers to cut things or what.
So it will have
One more thing to worry about.
I want to make sure that
The Navy's about
we
to
do
be
background
outfitted.
checks on people that want to buy their laser pistols.
Exactly.
Every shot will be registered.
Yeah.
So you guys are deep in King Animal. Is it almost rude to ask what's on the plate for the future while you're still kind of living and loving this album?
Yes. No. Not really. I mean, I think there's still some touring to do, and we still got to really kind of go everywhere and bring this new record there and play it more. And
Yeah, we've only toured it once.
yeah, but I also think that's also where the next record starts. Somebody's messing around during a sound check, and I always try to remember all that stuff, and you start to get a couple of ideas and you communicate it that way because you're out on the road together, and that's kind of the beginning of the next record. And I've already had sort of moments of thinking about what the next Soundgarden song I would want to write should sound like, and I think that sometimes it's a curse to say this, but I feel like we're sort of at that point in our life as Soundgarden and the life of the band that now is kind of when we could do virtually anything we want, and I'm of the mindset that that's always a good thing to take advantage of if you can.
Are you feeling self-indulgent with that? Where
I think
tomorrow
it's a
you could
good
go on
time to
whim?
be self-indulgent, particularly if nobody wants to sit and listen to a whole hour of music. Then don't listen to a whole hour of really self-indulgent music. Why not serve yourself if you can't get someone else to slow down and listen? But I also think that's I've always had this sort of strange sort of not understanding the notion of like the band not being self-indulgent. In other words, if you make the album you want to make, that's self-indulgent. However you want to put it. It's not about me as a music fan. I never wanted to one of my favorite bands or singer-songwriters or anybody to be thinking about me or worried about what I like when they're writing a song. I would hate it if I thought that. It would bum me out. I wouldn't trust it even if it was good. So I think whatever it is we do, it should be somewhat self-indulgent and probably always has been.
The internet is all aflutter because you recently brought up Temple of the Dog. Mm-hmm. And
Well, a fan brought up Temple of the Dog and it was like a question.
I think people are now wondering for a little clarification. Is that something that you guys are considering revisiting?
Well, we talked about it. We've talked about it lots of times. But we don't have any plans to do it.
Do you feel like it could be something that, obviously, as people and as an industry, we lose musicians all the time. Do you think it could continue?
As a friend and a fan of that stuff, do you realize why that band existed? You don't want to have that reason to make that record again.
Exactly.
You
But
know?
it happens. And did you feel like that could be something that would carry on as a tribute to people that you've lost or that the industry has lost?
Well, I think for us to actually be able to play like a show, we only ever played one show, and so I think that would be fun to do if everybody wanted to do it, is play a couple shows where we can play all the songs, and because we never did that.
Yeah, and look what happened that night.
Yeah.
Gunny got stabbed.
Yeah, the one show was very violent.
It's great to get the gang back together. for my last question, if I could be self-indulgent, the 2 Audio Slave shows that we did the day the war broke out. I mean, I was in the bunker at the Warfield for 18 hours a day, both days, and it was just maniacal. And it's just, I'll never forget that time. And I was wondering if you had any kind of memories from those 2 days that you could share.
Not really.
No, was it a blur?
Yeah, the whole thing was kind of a blur.